You're going to apologize to her. Right now. The words came out of my mouth before my brain could stop them. The entire restaurant went silent. Every server, every customer, every person in that room turned to stare at me like I'd just announced I was going to fly to the moon. The man in the expensive suit looked at me like I was an insect. Blood dripped from his nose onto his white shirt, and his dark eyes promised violence. His 3 bodyguards moved toward me, but he raised one hand, and they froze. That's when I realized I might have made a terrible mistake. But you know what? Some things are worth the risk. Some people are worth defending. And Yuki, my colleague who was still holding her face where this monster had slapped her, was definitely worth it. My name is Rachel Morrison, and this is the story of how I went from a struggling waitress trying to keep my dying father alive, to breaking a mafia boss's nose in the middle of dinner service, to something I never expected. Love. Real, complicated, dangerous love. Hey, how are you all doing today? I hope you're somewhere comfortable, because this story is going to take you on a ride you won't forget. Maybe you're having a tough day. Maybe you're dealing with your own battles. I want you to know that this story, my story, is about standing up when everything tells you to stay down. It's about finding strength you didn't know you had. And it's about learning that sometimes the people who seem like monsters are just broken in ways we can't see yet. So hit that like button if you believe in standing up for what's right. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about finding courage in impossible situations. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what the weather's like there. I love hearing from you all. But let me start from the beginning, 3 months before I broke that man's nose. I was 24 years old when I started working at Sakura Garden, this upscale Japanese restaurant in the heart of downtown. I'd been a waitress before, sure, but never anywhere this fancy. The kind of place where a single meal costs more than my weekly grocery budget. The kind of place where the wrong move could get you fired instantly. I needed this job desperately. My father, Captain James Morrison, former Special Operations Commander, the man they sent when 7,000 soldiers couldn't get the job done, was dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The medical bills were drowning me. Insurance covered some of it, but not enough. Never enough. Every morning I'd wake up at 5, check on Dad, make sure his medications were organized, and then head to my shift. Every night I'd come home exhausted, count the tips, and wonder if it would be enough this month. It never was. Dad taught me everything. Not just how to fight, though he definitely taught me that. Basic combat. Advanced combat. Military techniques most people never even hear about. Rachel, he'd say during our training sessions, strength isn't about size. It's about will. It's about protecting the people who can't protect themselves. I believed that. I still do. When I started at Sakura Garden, I was terrified of messing up. The manager, Mr. Tanaka, was strict but fair. The customers were demanding. The pace was brutal. I studied the menu like it was a final exam, practiced my smile in the mirror, and prayed I wouldn't drop anything expensive. That's when I met Yuki. She was maybe 25, same as me, with kind eyes and the gentlest smile I'd ever seen. While the other servers barely acknowledged me, Yuki took me under her wing immediately. She showed me which tables tipped well, how to handle difficult customers, the shortcuts through the kitchen that saved precious seconds during rush hour. Don't worry, she'd say in her soft voice. You'll get the hang of it. I'll help you. And she did. Every single day. I noticed she looked tired sometimes. Really tired. Like the exhaustion went bone deep. But she never complained, never slowed down. Always had that gentle smile ready. It was my 3rd week when she told me during our break. I have leukemia, Yuki said quietly, stirring her tea. Stage 3. The treatments aren't working as well as they hoped. My heart broke. This beautiful, kind person who'd been nothing but helpful to me was dying. Just like my father. The unfairness of it hit me like a punch to the gut. Yuki, I'm so sorry. It's okay, she said, and she actually smiled. I'm still here. Still fighting. That's what matters, right? I understood that. Fighting when everything says you should give up. That was my life too. We became close after that. Real friends. The kind who understand each other's pain without needing to explain. She knew about my dad. I knew about her illness. We both knew what it meant to watch someone you love fade away while you desperately try to hold on. The mistake started about 2 weeks ago. Yuki began getting distracted during shifts. She'd forget orders, mix up table numbers, bring the wrong dishes. I covered for her when I could. Mr. Tanaka noticed, but was surprisingly patient. Maybe he knew something I didn't yet. Then yesterday, Yuki mixed up an order. Just one dish, an honest mistake. The customer was understanding. Crisis averted. Today, she did it again. Table 7. A party of 4. All men in expensive suits, the kind that screamed money and power. I'd noticed them when they came in, because everyone got nervous. The other servers suddenly became very busy with other tables. Even Mr. Tanaka looked tense. Yuki took their order, but I could see she was struggling. Her hands shook slightly as she wrote. Her eyes had that distant look I'd started recognizing. The medication, the exhaustion, the pain, it was all catching up to her. She brought out their food 15 minutes later, and she'd mixed up one dish. The man at the head of the table, mid-30s maybe, with sharp features and eyes like black ice, looked at the plate in front of him. Then he looked at Yuki. "This isn't what I ordered," he said in Japanese. His voice was cold, controlled. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll fix that right away," Yuki began, bowing apologetically. She didn't even finish her sentence. His hand moved so fast. The slap echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. Yuki stumbled backward, hand flying to her cheek, tears instantly springing to her eyes. That's when everything went red. I moved before I could think. My father always said that hesitation gets you killed. In combat, in life, in moments that matter, you act on instinct. Your body knows what to do if you've trained it right. I crossed the dining room in 4 steps. The man was saying something else in Japanese, something cruel based on his tone, when I arrived at his table. His bodyguards were standing now, alert but not yet moving. They probably thought their boss was untouchable here. In his world, he probably was. Not in mine. "You need to apologize to her," I said clearly. My voice didn't shake, even though my heart was hammering. "Right now." He turned to look at me slowly, like I was something mildly interesting he'd found on his shoe. His eyes traveled from my face down to my name tag, and back up. There was no warmth there.
No humanity.
Just cold assessment. "You should go back to work, little girl," he said in perfect English. "This doesn't concern you. It concerns me when you hit my friend." One of his men stepped forward, hand reaching for my arm. I shifted my weight, ready to move, but the man at the table raised one finger, and his bodyguard froze. "Your friend made a mistake," he said calmly. "In my world, mistakes have consequences. In my world, hitting someone for bringing the wrong food makes you a coward." His eyes narrowed. Something flickered there, surprise maybe, or anger. Hard to tell. Yuki grabbed my arm, her voice urgent and frightened. "Rachel, please, just leave it. It's okay."
I'm okay.
But she wasn't okay. I could see the red mark blooming on her pale cheek, see the way she was trembling, see the tears she was trying to hold back. This woman who'd shown me nothing but kindness, who was fighting for her life every single day, who didn't deserve any of this. "It's not okay," I told her gently. Then I looked back at him. "Apologize." He laughed. Actually laughed. It was a cold sound, empty of real amusement. Then he started speaking in Japanese. Fast, dismissive, with that same cruel edge. He probably thought I couldn't understand. Most American waitresses at a Japanese restaurant only know enough to fake their way through basic menu items. But I understood every single word. He called me a stupid white girl who should learn her place. He said American women were all the same, loud and ignorant, and good for only one thing. He described that thing in graphic, disgusting detail. He told his men that maybe they should teach me some manners after his meal, the kind of lesson I wouldn't forget. The rage that filled me was white-hot and absolutely clear. My father's training took over. Weight on the back foot. Hips turned. Power from the core. My fist drove straight into his nose with everything I had behind it. The crack was satisfying. He went backward, chair tipping, blood exploding across his face. His hands flew to his nose as he hit the floor. The sound he made was somewhere between a gasp and a scream. I stood over him and spoke in perfect Japanese. You should learn that not all American women are ignorant. Some of us understand every word, and some of us know how to make men like you bleed. His eyes went wide with shock. Blood poured between his fingers, staining that expensive suit, dripping onto the pristine floor. For just a second, he looked almost human.
Surprised.
Vulnerable. Almost impressed. Then his men moved. The first one grabbed for my shoulder. I caught his wrist, twisted, and used his momentum to slam his hand against the edge of the table. The bones snapped with a wet crack. He howled, dropping to his knees. The second one was smarter, coming in low, but I saw him. Dad's training. Always know your surroundings. Always see the attack coming. I drove my elbow down toward his head, but before I could connect, a voice cut through the chaos. Stop. The man on the floor, blood still streaming from his nose, had raised his hand. His voice was thick, damaged, but absolutely commanding. His remaining bodyguard froze instantly. The one with the broken hand was still whimpering on the ground. Everyone in the restaurant was staring now. Customers, servers, kitchen staff crowding the doorway. Mr. Tanaka looked like he was going to have a heart attack. Yuki was crying, pulling at my arm, begging me to run. But I didn't run. The man got slowly to his feet, one hand still holding his broken nose. Blood covered the front of his shirt, his tie, everything. He looked at me with those dark eyes, and something in his expression had changed. The cold contempt was gone. Now, there was something else. Curiosity. Respect maybe. Something I couldn't quite identify. He spoke in Japanese again, but this time the tone was different. Not cruel. Almost wondering. Who are you? Nobody. I answered in the same language. Just a waitress, who doesn't let people hit her friends. Nobody, he repeated slowly, like he was tasting the word. Nobody breaks my nose. Nobody makes me bleed. Nobody speaks to me like that, and lives to tell about it. Well, now you've met somebody who does all three. He actually smiled. It was a terrible smile, blood-stained and slightly unhinged, but genuine. Then he switched to English, probably, so everyone could understand. What's her name? Rachel. Rachel. He tested it, that same way he'd tested nobody. I am Takashi Yamamoto. Do you know who I am? Should I? Another laugh, this one wet and painful sounding. You really don't, do you? You have no idea what you just did. I know exactly what I did. I stopped you from abusing someone weaker than you. If that's a crime in your world, then your world is broken. Mr. Tanaka finally found his voice. Mr. Yamamoto, please, I apologize. She's new. She doesn't understand. I'll fire her immediately. Please, your meal will be complimentary, and I'll personally ensure this never happens again. Takashi held up one hand, never taking his eyes off me.
No.
Sir, don't fire her. Don't apologize for her. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, pressed it to his still bleeding nose, and straightened his shoulders. She did exactly what she thought was right. That takes courage. Stupid courage, maybe, but courage nonetheless. He turned to Yuki, who was now openly sobbing, still clinging to my arm like I might disappear. When he spoke to her, his voice was different.
Softer.
Almost kind. I apologize for striking you. It was beneath me. Your mistake did not warrant violence. Yuki stared at him like he'd grown a second head. So, did everyone else in the restaurant. Whatever they'd expected, it wasn't this. I accept your apology, Yuki managed, her voice barely a whisper. Takashi nodded once, then looked back at me. You studied linguistics. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. University of Portland. Japanese was my focus. And the fighting? My father. Military training. Your father taught you well. He gestured to his bodyguard with the broken hand, who was now being helped up by the other one. Kaya's trained in martial arts for 15 years. You disabled him in 3 seconds. He was slow. Another of those bloody smiles. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which yet. Does it matter? Perhaps not. He pulled out his wallet, withdrew what looked like several $100 bills, and placed them on the table. For the meal and the trouble. And this. He placed a business card beside the money. When you realize what you've done tonight, when fear catches up to anger, call that number. I'll make sure you're protected. I don't need protection. Yes, he said softly. You do. You just don't know it yet. Then he walked out, his men following, leaving a trail of blood drops on the pristine floor. The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Tanaka grabbed my arm, his face red, his voice shaking with barely controlled fury. My office.
Now.
I looked at Yuki. She was still crying, but she nodded at me, trying to smile through her tears.
Go.
It'll be okay. It wouldn't be okay. I knew that. I just assaulted what was apparently a very important, very dangerous man in front of dozens of witnesses. My job was gone. Maybe worse. But as I followed Mr. Tanaka through the restaurant, past the staring customers and shocked servers, I felt something unexpected.
Pride.
I'd stood up for someone who needed it. I'd refused to let a bully win. Just like my father taught me. Whatever came next, I could face it. Or so I thought. I had no idea that breaking Takashi Yamamoto's nose was just the beginning. I didn't know that his world and mine were about to collide in ways I couldn't imagine. I didn't know that the man whose blood still stained my knuckles would become something I never expected. But first, I had to survive. What came next? Mr. Tanaka's office was small and cramped, every surface covered in papers, schedules, and supplier invoices. He slammed the door behind us hard enough to rattle the frame. Do you have any idea what you've done? His voice was low, dangerous. Any idea at all? I'd offended my friend. You assaulted Takashi Yamamoto. He was yelling now, his usual composure completely shattered. The Yamamoto family controls half the businesses in this district. They own the building we're standing in. They could shut us down with one phone call. They could do worse. Much worse. He hit Yuki. I don't care if he burned the building down. Mr. Tanaka's hands were shaking. You don't touch him. Nobody touches him. That's the rule. That's how we stay in business. That's how we stay alive. The weight of what he was saying started to sink in. Not regret for what I'd done, but understanding of what it meant. This wasn't just some rich customer with an attitude. This was organized crime. Real power. Real danger. I'm sorry I put the restaurant at risk, I said quietly. But I'm not sorry I did it. He stared at me for a long moment, then dropped into his chair like all the air had gone out of him. You're fired. Obviously. Clean out your locker and leave through the back. Don't come back. I nodded. I'd expected that. And Rachel? He looked up at me, and there was genuine fear in his eyes. Be careful. The Yamamoto family doesn't forget. They don't forgive. Watch your back. I left his office and went straight to the employee locker room. My hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. I'd just lost my job. The job I desperately needed to keep Dad's medical bills paid. The job that was barely keeping us afloat. What had I done? But then I remembered Yuki's face. The sound of that slap. The tears in her eyes. And I knew I'd do it again. Yuki found me as I was shoving my few belongings into my bag. She looked awful, her cheeks still red, her eyes swollen from crying. Rachel, I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't mixed up the order, if I'd been more careful... Stop. I grabbed her hands. This isn't your fault. None of it. You're dealing with so much already. One small mistake doesn't justify what he did. But you lost your job because of me. I lost my job because I chose to stand up for you. That was my choice. And I'd make it again. She hugged me then, tight and desperate. Thank you. Nobody's ever done anything like that for me before. You've been there for me since day one. That's what friends do. We stood there for a moment, two women who understood what it meant to fight impossible battles. Then she pulled back, wiping her eyes. What will you do now? Find another job. Keep fighting. Same as always. But as I walked home that night, the reality of my situation crashed down. Finding another job wouldn't be quick. I had maybe 2 weeks of savings if I stretched every penny. Dad's medication couldn't wait. The bills wouldn't pause just because I'd made a principled stand. I'd sacrificed our security for pride. The apartment was dark when I got home. Dad was asleep. His breathing labored even in rest. I stood in his doorway for a moment, watching the rise and fall of his chest, and felt my eyes burn with tears I refused to shed. He taught me to be strong, to stand up for others, to never back down from what was right. But he'd also taught me to be smart, to think strategically, to understand when you were outmatched. I'd forgotten that last part tonight. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello. Miss Morrison. The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Mr. Yamamoto would like to meet with you tomorrow. 2 p.m. at the address I'm texting you now. Come alone. And if I don't, then other arrangements will be made. This meeting is a courtesy. I suggest you accept it. He hung up before I could respond. A text came through seconds later with an address in the business district, a building I recognized as one of the most expensive in the city. I should have been terrified. Maybe I was underneath everything else. But mostly I felt tired. So incredibly tired. I looked at the business card Takashi had left on the table. I'd grabbed it without thinking when Mr. Tanaka dismissed me. Heavy cardstock, simple black text. Just a name and a phone number. Nothing else. What did he want? Revenge? To make an example of me? Or something else entirely? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed running through scenarios, thinking about Dad, worrying about money, replaying that moment when my fist connected with Takashi's nose. The satisfaction of it, the rightness of it. Even knowing everything that came after, I couldn't regret it. Morning came gray and cold. I made Dad breakfast, helped him take his medications, tried to keep my voice steady when he asked how work had gone.
Fine I lead.
Everything's fine. He knew I was lying. After 30 years in special operations, the man could read people like books. But he also knew when not to push. He just squeezed my hand and told me he loved me. Love you too, Dad. At 1:30, I dressed in the only professional outfit I owned. Black pants, white blouse. Nothing fancy, but clean and pressed. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 24 years old. Already so tired. Already carrying so much weight. You can do this, I told my reflection. Whatever he wants, you can handle it. The building was exactly as intimidating as I'd expected. All glass and steel, gleaming in the afternoon sun. Security in the lobby, expensive art on the walls, the kind of place where people like me didn't belong. I gave my name to the receptionist. She made a call, then directed me to the elevator. Penthouse floor. Someone will meet you. The elevator ride felt like it lasted forever. My heart hammered against my ribs. My palms were sweaty. Every floor that passed was another second closer to whatever came next. The doors opened onto a private hallway. A man in a dark suit waited there, the same bodyguard from last night. The one I hadn't broken. Miss Morrison. This way, please. He led me to a set of double doors, knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. The office beyond was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dark wood furniture, minimalist and expensive. And sitting behind a huge desk, wearing a fresh suit with no blood on it, was Takashi Yamamoto. The bruising around his nose was spectacular. Both eyes were blackened, his nose obviously swollen despite what had to be professional medical treatment. I'd done that. I'd marked him. He looked up when I entered, and something flickered across his face. Not anger. Something else. Something I couldn't read. Miss Morrison. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? There's always a choice. The consequences just vary. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please.
Seat.
I sat, keeping my back straight, my hands steady on the armrests. Whatever he wanted, I wouldn't show fear. He studied me for a long moment, those dark eyes assessing. Then he smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Not the cold, cruel expression from last night. Something genuine, almost warm. You broke my nose. You hit my friend.
I did.
It was wrong of me. I've already apologized to her. Now, I'm apologizing to you. Not for defending her, but for creating a situation where you felt you had to. I hadn't expected that. Okay. I've been thinking about you since last night. About what kind of person does what you did. Courage, yes. Stupidity, certainly. But also something else. Principle. You knew who I was, even if you didn't know my name. You saw the suits, the bodyguards, the fear in everyone else's faces. You understood the power dynamic. And you didn't care. I cared. I just cared more about Yuki. Exactly. He leaned forward. I want to offer you a job. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, that wasn't one of them.
What? A job.
Better pay than the restaurant. Full benefits. Medical coverage for both you and your father. My heart stopped. How do you know about my father? I know everything about you, Rachel. Your father, Captain James Morrison, decorated Special Operations Officer, currently suffering from stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Your mother, deceased 5 years ago in a car accident. Your degree in linguistics from University of Portland, graduated with honors despite working 2 jobs. Your mountain of medical debt. Your eviction notice that came yesterday. Your desperate need for exactly what I'm offering. The invasion of privacy should have made me angry. Instead, I felt exposed. Vulnerable. He'd stripped away every layer of protection in one paragraph. What kind of job? My personal assistant. Translator. Occasionally, someone who can handle themselves in difficult situations. You mean a bodyguard? Among other things. Why would you want someone who broke your nose working for you? He touched his face gently, wincing slightly. Because you're the first person in 10 years who's treated me like I'm not untouchable. Because you have skills I need and principles I respect. And because I think we could help each other. I don't work for criminals. I'm not asking you to do anything criminal. I need someone I can trust. Someone who won't be afraid to tell me when I'm wrong. Someone who sees me as human, not as a title or a threat. You are a threat.
Yes.
But I can also be an opportunity. Think about it. Your father needs care you can't afford. That eviction notice gives you 2 weeks. This job solves both problems. Medical coverage starts immediately. Housing is included. All I ask is your loyalty and your honesty. It was too good to be true. It had to be. What's the catch? The catch is that my world is dangerous.
You saw that last night.
Working for me means becoming a target by association. It means dealing with people who won't be as forgiving as I am. It means stepping into a life you can't easily leave. Sounds like you're asking me to sell my soul. I'm asking you to make a choice. Pride and poverty, or compromise and security. There's no wrong answer. But there's a clock ticking. How long can your father wait for his medications? How long before that eviction becomes real? He was right and he knew it. Worse, I knew it. I had no other options. No backup plan. No safety net. If I say yes, I want conditions. Name them. I won't hurt innocent people. I won't participate in anything that violates my ethics. And if you ever hit someone the way you hit Yuki again, I walk. No matter what contract I've signed. He considered this, then nodded. Agreed. Anything else? Yuki. She keeps her job at the restaurant.
No retaliation.
No pressure. She works in peace. Already done. I've also arranged for her medical bills to be paid. She'll have access to the best oncology specialists in the country. That stopped me. Why? Because you care about her. And because I want you to understand that working for me means I take care of what matters to you. Loyalty runs both ways in my world. I wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, a deal with the devil, a compromise too far. But I thought about Dad, struggling to breathe in that dark apartment. I thought about Yuki, fighting for her life while worrying about medical debt. I thought about the eviction notice sitting on my kitchen table. Sometimes courage means fighting. Sometimes it means knowing when you're beaten and finding another way forward. When do I start? Takashi smiled, and this time it reached his eyes.
Right now.
We have a lot of work to do, Rachel Morrison. And a lot for you to learn about my world. He had no idea how right he was. The first week working for Takashi Yamamoto was nothing like I expected. I thought it would be dark rooms and suspicious meetings, criminals plotting crimes, violence, and threats. Instead, it was contracts and negotiations, business meetings conducted in 3 languages, and endless cups of tea, while Takashi navigated a world far more complex than I'd imagined. The Yamamoto family has been in business for 4 generations, he explained on my second day, showing me files and organizational charts. We started in shipping and imports, legitimate business. Over time, certain elements became less legitimate. My grandfather made choices that shaped our reputation. My father expanded that influence. Now I'm trying to find a balance. A balance between legal and illegal? A balance between power and principle. He looked at me directly. I'm not a good man, Rachel. I've done things I'm not proud of. But I'm trying to be better than what I was raised to be. That's where you come in. As what? Your conscience. As someone who reminds me that there are lines worth maintaining. The job itself was demanding but not impossible. I translated documents from Japanese to English and back, attended meetings as his assistant, took notes, managed schedules. The pay was exactly what he'd promised. Obscene by my standards. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. The medical coverage started immediately. Dad's doctor called me 3 days in, confused but delighted that suddenly every treatment option was on the table. No more choosing between medication and rent. No more rationing pills to make them last. Just care. Real, comprehensive care. I don't understand, Dad said when I visited that weekend. He looked better already, some color back in his face. How did you manage this? New job. Better benefits. He studied me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. What kind of job comes with benefits like this? Executive assistant position. Downtown office. It's legitimate, Dad. I promise. That was mostly true. The work I did was legitimate. The man I did it for was considerably less so. But Dad was getting better. That's what mattered. Yuki called me crying 2 days after I started. Rachel, I don't know what you did, but someone paid my medical bills. All of them. And the hospital called saying I have an appointment with Dr. Chun next week. Dr. Chun, Rachel. He's the best oncologist in the state. I've been on his waiting list for 8 months. That's amazing, Yuki. Was it you? Did you do this somehow? I just know someone who could help.
Don't worry about it.
Focus on getting better. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You were there for me when I needed it. Now it's my turn. After we hung up, I sat in my new office, a small room adjacent to Takashi's much larger one, and tried to process what was happening. My father was getting treatment. My best friend had hope. I had money in the bank for the first time in years. And all it cost was working for a man whose reputation made people cross the street to avoid him. Takashi himself was the biggest surprise. He was nothing like the cold, cruel person I'd met at the restaurant. In business meetings, he was sharp and decisive but fair. He treated his employees with respect, paid them well, listened to their concerns. When a junior accountant made a mistake that cost the company money, instead of firing him, Takashi sat down with him and went through the numbers together until they understood what went wrong. Everyone makes mistakes, he told me afterward. The question is whether they learn from them. That's surprisingly understanding for someone with your reputation. My reputation is a tool. Fear keeps people from testing boundaries. But fear without fairness breeds resentment. Resentment breeds betrayal. I learned that from my father's mistakes. What happened to your father? His expression closed off immediately. That's not a conversation for today. I learned quickly that Takashi had walls. Thick ones. Certain topics were forbidden. Certain questions went unanswered. Certain parts of his life remained completely hidden from view. But slowly, carefully, I started to see cracks in those walls. Like the way he visited a children's hospital every Tuesday evening, reading stories to sick kids. He thought nobody knew. I only found out because I stayed late one night and saw him leaving in casual clothes instead of his usual suits. Or the way he personally funded scholarships for underprivileged students, anonymously, through a foundation with no connection to his name. Or the way he spoke to his elderly grandmother every morning in Japanese, his voice soft and patient, telling her about his day, listening to her advice. These glimpses of humanity confused me. They made him harder to categorize, easier to like. That was dangerous. "You're staring," Takashi said one afternoon, not looking up from the contract he was reviewing. I jerked my attention back to my laptop.
Saw the...
Just thinking. About. How you're not what I expected. He did look up then, something unreadable in his expression. What did you expect? A monster, honestly. Someone cruel and cold and completely without conscience. And now, I don't know what to think. He smiled slightly.
Good.
Keep me guessing. It's more interesting that way. The problem was I was starting to guess things I shouldn't. Like how his eyes softened when he looked at me sometimes. Or how he found excuses to work late when I worked late. Or how he remembered details I'd mentioned in passing, my favorite tea, my father's good days and bad days, the books I liked to read. I told myself it didn't mean anything. He was my employer. A criminal. Someone fundamentally incompatible with everything I believed in. But my heart wasn't listening to logic anymore. The first real test came 3 weeks in. A meeting with another family, the Tanaka group. Not Mr. Tanaka from the restaurant, different people entirely. They controlled gambling operations in the North District and wanted to expand into Yamamoto territory. The meeting was tense from the start. 5 men in expensive suits, all watching Takashi like predators evaluating prey. I sat beside him taking notes, trying to be invisible, feeling the danger in the room like static electricity. The negotiation went nowhere. They wanted terms Takashi wouldn't accept. He offered compromises they refused. Voices rose. Threats became less subtle. Then one of them looked at me. "Pretty assistant you have, Yamamoto." She knew. "Miss Morrison is my translator." Nothing more. Morrison. The man smiled unpleasantly. "The waitress who broke your nose."
We heard about that.
Caused quite a stir. Yamamoto brought low by some American girl who didn't know her place. Takashi's voice went cold. "Choose your next words carefully, Sato." "Just making an observation." Interesting choice keeping her around. Some might see it as weakness. Sentimentality. That's dangerous in our world. My choices are my own. Your concern is noted and dismissed. Sato leaned back, still smiling. Of course. No offense meant. Just friendly advice. Pretty things can be distracting. They can also be leverage. The threat was clear. I felt Takashi tense beside me, his hand curling into a fist under the table. The other bodyguards in the room shifted position. Violence hung in the air like smoke. "This meeting is over," Takashi said quietly. "You have 1 week to accept my terms or find another territory to expand into. If you choose confrontation, you'll regret it." We left before they could respond. In the car, Takashi was silent, staring out the window with that cold expression back in place. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "I didn't mean to cause problems." "You didn't cause anything." Sato is testing boundaries. Trying to find weaknesses. That's what men like him do. Am I a weakness? He looked at me then, and something in his eyes made my breath catch. That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out. The incident should have driven us apart. Instead, it seemed to pull Takashi closer. He became more protective, insisting I travel with bodyguards, checking in throughout the day, teaching me more about his world, so I could protect myself. "You need to understand how we operate," he explained during one late-night session in his office. "The rules are different here. Respect is everything. Loyalty is everything. Once you're part of this world, leaving becomes complicated. Are you warning me? I'm preparing you. The Sato incident won't be the last. People will test me through you. They'll try to use you as leverage. You need to be ready. I can take care of myself. I know.
I've seen your skills.
But there's a difference between winning a fight and surviving a war. Let me teach you the difference."
So he did.
Not just fighting, though we did that too. He showed me the political landscape of his world. The alliances and feuds, the unwritten rules, the delicate balance of power that kept everything from exploding into chaos.
He also taught me about himself. Slowly, carefully.
Like someone afraid of revealing too much. My father died when I was 25, he told me one evening. Betrayed by someone he trusted. Someone in our own organization. I had to take over unprepared, surrounded by people waiting for me to fail. I learned to be hard.
To be feared.
Because fear kept me alive. And now I'm tired of being feared. But I don't know how to be anything else. You could start by being yourself. Not the reputation. Not the role. Just you. And who is that? I don't know yet. But I'd like to find out. He looked at me for a long moment, something vulnerable in his expression. You're dangerous, Rachel Morrison. More dangerous than any enemy I've faced. Why? Because you make me want to be the man you think I could be. And that terrifies me. The walls were crumbling. I could feel it. Whatever barrier had existed between employer and employee, between criminal and civilian, between two people from completely different worlds, it was breaking down brick by brick. And I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it. But then everything changed. A phone call came late one Friday night. I was still at the office, working on translations for a shipping contract. Takashi answered, listened for maybe 30 seconds, then his entire expression shifted. When?
Pause.
How many?
Pause.
I'll handle it. He hung up, already moving toward the door. Get your coat. We need to go. What happened? The Sato group just hit one of our warehouses. 3 of my men are injured. This is retaliation for the meeting. What are we going to do? He stopped, turned to face me. Not we.
Me.
You're going home with security. Right now. But I can help. Rachel, this is exactly what I was trying to protect you from. This is the reality of my world. Violence. Retaliation.
Va.
You don't need to see this. I'm part of your world now, remember? You said so yourself. I was wrong to drag you into this. I should have left you alone. Let you keep your integrity and your innocence. My father raised me to stand with people when things get hard. Not just when it's convenient. If you're going into danger, I'm going with you. Why? The question hung between us. I could have given him a dozen professional answers. Because I'm your assistant. Because it's my job. Because you pay me well. Instead, I told him the truth. Because I care what happens to you. And I think you care what happens to me. So, let's stop pretending this is just business. His eyes widened slightly. Then he smiled, and it was the most genuine expression I'd ever seen on his face. You're going to be the death of me, Rachel Morrison. Or maybe I'll be what keeps you alive. Maybe. We went to the warehouse together. And that's when I learned exactly how deep I'd fallen into his world. And how impossible it would be to climb back out. The warehouse was in the industrial district, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned buildings. By the time we arrived, police sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. We need to be fast, Takashi said as we pulled up. 5 minutes. In and out. His men were already there, 3 of them injured but alive, sitting against the wall while others worked to secure the area. The damage was extensive. Burned shipping containers, shattered windows, inventory scattered everywhere. But that wasn't what made my blood run cold. It was the message spray painted across the main wall in red letters 3 feet high. Yamamoto weakness will be exploited. And beneath it, a photo, taped to the concrete, of me, leaving Takashi's office building, walking to my car. Completely unaware, I was being watched.
Takashi saw it the same moment I did.
His entire body went rigid, his hand instinctively moving to shield me even though the threat wasn't here anymore. Get her out of here, he told his head of security, a man named Kenji.
Now.
Take her to the safe house. I'm not leaving you here. Rachel, this isn't a discussion. They just declared war. And they made you the target. Every second you're visible is a risk. Then we both leave. Your men can handle this. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. His eyes were fierce, almost desperate.
You don't understand.
In my world, When they identify a weakness, they exploit it without mercy. They'll come after you to hurt me. They'll use you as leverage. And I won't let that happen. So what? I hide. I run? That's not who I am. I know exactly who you are. That's why I need you safe. Please, Rachel. For once, just trust me and go. The please broke through my resistance. I'd never heard him say that word before. Never seen him look this vulnerable, this afraid. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Kenji led me to an armored vehicle. As we pulled away, I watched through the rear window as Takashi stood in front of that wall, staring at my photo, his shoulders tense with barely controlled rage. I'd never seen him look so dangerous, so utterly ruthless. And I realized I'd done exactly what he'd feared. I'd become his weakness. The thing his enemies could use against him. The safe house was a luxury apartment in a secure building downtown. 2 guards at the entrance, cameras everywhere, bulletproof windows. A prison wrapped in expensive furnishings. Kenji positioned himself outside the door. Mr. Yamamoto will be here as soon as he can. Don't leave this apartment for any reason. How long? However long it takes to handle the situation. He left me alone in the silence. I called my father. He answered on the second ring, his voice stronger than it had been in months. The new treatments were working. Rachel, sweetheart. How are you? Good, Dad. Just checking in. How are you feeling? Better every day. This new doctor you found, he's amazing. I actually went for a walk today. First time in weeks. My eyes burned with unshed tears. That's wonderful. You sound tired. Everything okay at work? Just busy. You know how it is. We talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. His physical therapy progress. The nurse who came by twice a day. The neighbor who'd brought him soup. Normal things. Safe things. When we hung up, the silence of the apartment pressed in around me. I paced the living room, too restless to sit, too anxious to focus on anything. Hours passed. The sun set. The city lights came on below, thousands of people living normal lives, completely unaware that somewhere out there, dangerous men were making calculations about my value as a target. My phone buzzed.
Takashi.
Are you safe?
Yes.
Kenji has me locked down tight. Good. A pause.
I'm sorry, Rachel.
I never wanted this for you. What's happening out there? I'm handling it.
Don't worry.
Takashi, talk to me.
Please.
What are you going to do? Another pause, longer this time. What I have to. What my father would have done. What my grandfather did. I'm going to remind this auto group why people fear the Yamamoto name. The coldness in his voice scared me. This wasn't the man who read to sick children or spoke gently to his grandmother. This was the person he'd been trying not to be. The monster his world had created. Don't do anything you'll regret. I regret many things already, but letting them threaten you won't be one of them. He hung up before I could respond. I tried calling back. Voicemail. Tried again. Same thing. He'd shut me out. Gone to do whatever brutal thing he thought necessary to protect me. And I was trapped here, helpless to stop him. Sleep was impossible. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how quickly everything had spiraled. 3 weeks ago, I was a waitress struggling to survive. Now I was caught in a gang war, the leverage point in a conflict I barely understood. My phone rang at 3 a.m. Unknown number. Hello. Miss Morrison. You don't know me, but I know you. The voice was male, accented, cold. My name is Sato Hideaki. I believe you've heard of me. My blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? I have access to many things, including information about you. Your father, for instance, Captain James Morrison, currently residing at 412 Oak Street, apartment 3B, receiving excellent medical care, I understand. It would be unfortunate if something happened to interrupt that care. Don't you dare touch him. I have no intention of touching anyone, provided you listen carefully. Takashi Yamamoto is making a mistake. His attachment to you is clouding his judgment. He's preparing to start a war over a warehouse and a photograph.
Dozens of people will die.
All because he can't control his emotions. What do you want? I wanted to convince him to accept my original terms. The territory split, the profit sharing, all of it. Tell him to agree. And this ends peacefully. No more attacks. No more threats. Everyone goes home safe. And if he refuses, then the consequences will fall on the people he cares about. Starting with you. Then your father. Then that sick friend of yours, Yuki. I believe she's finally getting good treatment. How tragic if her new doctor suddenly became unavailable. The casual way he threatened the people I loved made me want to scream. You're a coward. Hiding behind threats instead of dealing with him directly. I'm a businessman making a practical offer. You have until tomorrow evening to convince Yamamoto. After that, my patience expires. And Miss Morrison, don't bother trying to trace this call or report it to anyone. I have eyes everywhere, including inside Yamamoto's organization. The line went dead. I sat there shaking, the phone still pressed to my ear. He had someone inside. A traitor in Takashi's organization. Feeding information to his enemies. That's how they knew about me so quickly. About my father. About Yuki. Someone close to Takashi was selling him out. I had to warn him. I called his number. Voicemail again. Left a message explaining everything Sato had said. Then I called Kenji. I need to speak to Takashi immediately. It's urgent. He's in a meeting, Miss Morrison. I can't interrupt. Kenji, there's a traitor in the organization.
Sato just called me.
He knows things only someone inside would know. Takashi is walking into a trap. A long silence. Stay where you are. I'll make the call. He hung up. I waited, pacing again, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every minute felt like an hour. The apartment door opened. I spun around, expecting Kenji. It wasn't Kenji. It was Takashi, and he looked like he'd walked through hell. Blood on his knuckles, his shirt torn, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. But alive.
Whole.
Takashi, thank God. I need to tell you something. I know. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. Sato called you. Threatened your father. Threatened Yuki. Tried to use you to manipulate me. Yes, but that's not all. He said he has someone inside your organization. Someone feeding him information. That's how he knew about me, about everything. I know that too. Something in his tone made me freeze. What happened tonight? I found the traitor. He moved into the apartment, closing the door behind him, leaning against it like he needed the support. Someone I trusted. Someone who's been with me for 3 years. He sold us out for money and promises of a better position with the Sato Group. What did you do? What I had to do. The finality in those words told me everything. I wanted to ask for details. I wanted to know exactly what that meant, but I was also afraid of the answer. Where does that leave us? I asked instead. It leaves us at war. Full, open conflict. Sato made his move. I've made mine. Now we see who's still standing when it's over. Takashi, he gave us an out. If you agree to his terms, this ends. No more violence. No more death. He laughed, a bitter sound with no humor in it. You actually believe that? The moment I show weakness, every group in the city will try the same thing. They'll threaten everyone I care about, demand concessions, chip away at my power piece by piece. That's how it works, Rachel. You can't negotiate from a position of weakness. But people will die. People are already dying. The difference is whether I control how it happens or let my enemies dictate terms. He pushed off the door, moved closer to me.
I'm sorry.
I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know this goes against everything you believe in. But this is who I am. This is my world. And I won't apologize for doing what's necessary to survive in it. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth I'd been avoiding. He wasn't some misunderstood soul trying to reform. He wasn't a good man trapped in a bad situation. He was exactly what everyone said he was. Dangerous. Ruthless. Willing to do terrible things to maintain power. The man who read to sick children was real. But so was this version. They existed together, inseparable, two sides of the same complicated person. And I'd fallen for both versions. That's what hurt the most. Not that he was a criminal. Not that he was choosing violence. But that I cared about him anyway. Despite everything. Despite knowing better. I can't be part of this, I whispered. I can't help you hurt people. I know. His eyes held genuine pain. That's why you're leaving. Tonight. Kenji will take you and your father somewhere safe. Far from here. New identities, new lives, everything paid for. You'll never have to see me or this world again. You're sending me away? I'm protecting you the only way I know how. By removing you from the equation. Once you're gone, Sato has no leverage. No reason to come after you. You'll be safe. What about Yuki? Already arranged. She's being moved to a private facility upstate. Best care available, completely secure. She'll be protected. He'd thought of everything. Planned it all out. My escape, my father's safety, Yuki's protection. Everything neat and tidy, wrapped up with money and power and connections. Everything except what I actually wanted. And if I don't want to go? Then you're a fool. His voice cracked slightly. Rachel, I'm trying to do the right thing here. For once in my miserable life, I'm putting someone else's well-being above my own interests. Don't make this harder than it already is. Maybe I want it to be hard. Maybe I want you to have to face what you're giving up. What am I giving up?
Me. Us.
Whatever this thing between us is. You're choosing your world over the possibility of something different. There's no something different for people like me. There's only survival. And right now, your survival depends on you disappearing. He was right. Logically, practically, strategically, he was absolutely right. Staying meant danger. Leaving meant safety. The choice should have been obvious. But my heart was screaming at me to stay. When do I leave? 2 hours. Pack, whatever matters. Say goodbye to your father. Then you're gone. Just like that. Just like that. We stood there in the silence, two people from different worlds who'd found each other at the worst possible time. Everything unsaid hung between us, too heavy to speak, too real to ignore. Finally, he moved toward the door. I'll send Kenji to help you pack. And Rachel, for what it's worth, these last 3 weeks have been the best of my life. I won't forget them. Or you. Takashi, wait. He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. Be careful.
Please.
Don't let this war destroy you. Too late for that. I was destroyed a long time ago. You just made me forget it for a little while. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the weight of choices I couldn't take back and feelings I couldn't ignore. I had 2 hours to pack up my life and disappear. 2 hours to say goodbye to everything I'd built. 2 hours to leave behind the man I'd somehow fallen in love with. But as I started gathering my few belongings, as I thought about my father finally getting better and Yuki finally getting help and myself finally getting safe, one thought kept circling through my mind. What if I didn't want safe anymore? What if I wanted to fight? I didn't pack. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed for 2 hours, staring at the empty suitcase, thinking about everything that had led me to this moment. Every choice. Every compromise. Every line I'd crossed without fully realizing it. When Kenji knocked on the door, I opened it with my decision already made. I'm not going. He blinked, clearly not expecting this. Miss Morrison, Mr. Yamamoto, was very clear about your departure timeline. I know what he said. I'm telling you I'm not leaving. Where is he? I can't disclose his location. He's handling sensitive business. Then take me to him.
Now.
Miss Morrison, please be reasonable. He's trying to protect you. I don't need his protection. I need him to stop making decisions for me like I'm some fragile thing that needs to be hidden away. Take me to him, Kenji, or I'll find him myself. Something in my voice must have convinced him I was serious. He sighed, pulled out his phone, had a brief conversation in Japanese, then nodded. He's at the main office. Against my better judgment, I'll take you there. But if he asks, this was your idea entirely.
Deal.
The drive back downtown was tense and silent. Kenji kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror like I was a bomb about to explode. Maybe I was. We pulled into the underground parking garage. Kenji led me to a private elevator that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. The security had intensified dramatically since I'd left earlier. The elevator opened directly into Takashi's office floor. But it wasn't the clean, organized space I'd become familiar with. Now it looked like a war room. Maps spread across tables, phones ringing constantly, men in suits moving with urgent purpose. And in the center of it all, Takashi. Still wearing that torn, blood-stained shirt. Still looking exhausted. Still radiating that cold, dangerous energy. He saw me immediately. His expression went from shocked to angry in half a second. Why is she here? I gave explicit instructions. She refused to leave, Kenji said simply. And she made it clear she would come with or without my help. I chose to ensure her safe arrival. Takashi's jaw clenched. Everyone out.
Now.
The room cleared in seconds. Even Kenji retreated, closing the door behind him, leaving us alone in the sudden silence. You were supposed to be gone, Takashi said quietly. Too quietly. The kind of quiet that precedes an explosion. I changed my mind. This isn't a game, Rachel. This isn't some noble stand you can make and feel good about yourself. People are going to die.
Soon.
Possibly tonight. And I need to know you're safe, so I can focus on keeping my people alive. Then let me help you. Help me? He laughed, that same bitter sound from before. How exactly do you think you can help? By standing in the crossfire? By giving Sato another target? By making me worry about you when I should be thinking about strategy? By reminding you that there's another way? By being the person who tells you when you're about to cross a line you can't uncross? I crossed that line years ago. Multiple times. There's no going back for someone like me. I don't believe that. Then you're naive. He moved closer, his eyes hard. You want to know what I did tonight? What you're staying here means you're complicit in. I found the traitor. A man named Hiro, who worked for me for 3 years. He had a wife, 2 kids, a life. And I killed him, Rachel.
Personally.
Because in my world, betrayal has only one punishment. He was trying to shock me. Trying to make me see him as the monster he believed himself to be. Trying to drive me away with brutal honesty. But I'd grown up with a father who'd been to war. Who'd made impossible choices in impossible situations. Who taught me that the world wasn't simple, that good people sometimes did terrible things, and that judgment from a distance was easy, but meaningless. Did he know what he was risking when he betrayed you? I asked quietly. Yes. Did he have a chance to surrender? To face consequences less severe? He chose to fight instead. Then you did what you had to do to survive. I don't like it. I won't pretend it's okay. But I understand it. He stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. You understand it. My father killed people, Takashi. In war, yes, but he still took lives. He carried that weight every day.
I saw what it did to him.
The nightmares, the guilt, the constant questioning of every decision. But he did it because not doing it would have meant letting innocent people die. Sometimes there are no good choices. Only less terrible ones. That's a convenient rationalization. It's reality.
And you know it.
You're not killing for pleasure. You're not hurting people randomly. You're fighting to survive in a world that doesn't allow weakness. I don't agree with all your methods, but I'm not naive enough to think you can just opt out of your circumstances. So, what? You're going to stay and be my moral compass? Stand beside me while I wage war. I'm going to stay because running away doesn't change anything. Sato will still come after the people I care about to hurt you. My father will still be a target. Yuki will still be in danger. The only difference is whether I'm here trying to minimize the damage or hiding somewhere pretending I'm not part of this. He turned away, his hands gripping the edge of his desk hard enough to turn his knuckles white. You're making a mistake.
Probably.
But it's my mistake to make. A long silence stretched between us. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, almost defeated. I can't promise to be the man you want me to be. I'm not asking you to be anyone but yourself. All of yourself. The good parts and the hard parts.
Just don't shut me out.
Don't make decisions for me because you think you're protecting me, even if those decisions are right. Especially then, because I deserve the chance to choose my own path, even if it's a dangerous one. He turned back to face me, and something in his expression had shifted. The walls were still there, but cracks had formed. Space for me to exist in his world without being pushed away. If you stay, you follow my orders. When I say run, you run. When I say hide, you hide.
No arguments. No negotiations.
My word is final when it comes to your safety. Agreed. As long as you actually talk to me instead of just issuing commands. I'm not good at talking. Then learn. For both our sakes. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You're incredibly stubborn. I had a good teacher. The moment hung between us, fragile and precious. Then his phone rang, shattering the peace. He answered in Japanese, listened, his expression hardening.
When?
How many? I'm on my way. He hung up, already moving toward the door. Sato's men just hit one of our clubs. 3 civilian casualties. This is escalating faster than I expected. What do you need me to do? He paused, looked back at me. Come with me. Stay close. If things get dangerous, you listen to Kenji, and you get out. Understood? Understood. What followed was a nightmare week. Attacks and counterattacks. Burned businesses and destroyed property. Takashi barely slept, running on adrenaline and rage, and the desperate need to protect what was his. I stayed by his side, translating, organizing, doing whatever small things I could to help. I also watched him change. The kind, thoughtful man I'd gotten to know disappeared behind layers of cold strategy. He made decisions that turned my stomach. Authorized actions I couldn't defend. Became the ruthless leader his reputation promised. But late at night, when we were alone in his office, the mask would slip. He'd look at me with exhausted, haunted eyes and ask if I was okay. If I wanted to leave. If I hated him yet. I could never hate you, I told him on the 4th night. But I'm scared. Not for me.
For you.
For what this is doing to you. This is who I've always been.
No.
This is who you think you have to be. There's a difference. He didn't answer. Just pulled me into a hug that felt like a drowning man grabbing for air. I held him back, feeling the tremors running through his body, the weight of everything he carried.
I'm tired, Rachel.
So tired of this life. This constant fighting. This never-ending need to prove I'm strong enough, dangerous enough, untouchable enough. Then stop. Find another way. There is no other way. Not for people like me. But even as he said it, I could hear the doubt, the hope, the desperate wish that I might be right. Then everything fell apart. The call came on day 6. My father's nurse, hysterical and barely coherent. Miss Morrison, you need to come quickly. Your father, there's been an incident. My blood turned to ice. What kind of incident? Men came to the apartment. They said they were from his new medical team, but something felt wrong. Security stopped them, but your father got agitated. His heart, the stress, he collapsed. They're rushing him to the hospital now. I dropped the phone. Takashi caught me as my legs gave out. Rachel, what happened? My father. Sato's men tried to get to him. He collapsed. He's going to the hospital. Which hospital? St. Mary's. I'll get you there. Right now. The drive was a blur. Takashi drove himself, breaking every traffic law, his hand occasionally reaching over to squeeze mine. At the hospital, he had to stay in the car because his presence would cause chaos. But he sent Kenji with me as protection. Dad was in surgery when I arrived. Emergency cardiac procedure. The stress of the attempted attack had triggered a massive heart attack. On top of everything else his body was fighting, this might be too much. I sat in the waiting room for 6 hours. Kenji stood nearby, silent and vigilant. Takashi called every 30 minutes for updates. When the surgeon finally emerged, his expression told me everything before he said a word. Miss Morrison, I'm sorry. We did everything we could, but the damage was too extensive. Combined with his existing condition, His heart simply couldn't recover. He passed away 20 minutes ago. The world stopped. My father, Captain James Morrison, the strongest man I'd ever known, the person who'd taught me everything about courage and honor and standing up for others, was gone. Because of me. Because I'd gotten involved with Takashi. Because I'd made myself a target. I don't remember leaving the hospital. Don't remember Kenji calling Takashi or the drive back to the office. Everything was numb, distant, like I was watching my life from outside my body. Takashi was waiting when we arrived. He took one look at my face and knew. Rachel, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. My voice sounded strange, hollow. I brought this into his life. He was getting better. The treatments were working. He was going to survive. And then I ruined everything. This isn't your fault. This is Sato. This is on him. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't stayed. If I just listened to you and left. He'd still be alive. You don't know that. Yes, I do. The numbness was cracking, grief pouring through like water through a dam. You were right. I was naive. I thought I could handle your world, but I can't. People die because of me. Good people. Innocent people. Rachel, please. Don't do this to yourself. But I was already moving toward the door. I need to be alone. Please. Just leave me alone. Let me help you. You can't help me. Nobody can. I left before he could stop me. Went back to the safe house apartment. Locked the door. And finally let myself break. I cried for my father. For all the years stolen from him. For the grandchildren he'd never meet and the life he'd never get to live now that his health was improving. For the last conversation we'd had where I'd lied about everything being fine. I cried for myself. For the choices I'd made and the consequences I couldn't escape. For the girl I'd been 3 weeks ago who thought she could save everyone if she just tried hard enough. And I cried for Takashi. For the impossible situation we'd created. For the feelings between us that couldn't survive in the real world. For the future we'd never have. My phone rang. Yuki. Rachel, oh my God, I just heard. I'm so sorry. Your father, I can't believe it. How are you holding up? I don't know. I can't think. I can't process any of this. Do you want me to come? I can leave the facility. Be there for you. No. Stay where you're safe. That's all that matters now. Rachel, this isn't your fault. Everyone keeps saying that. It doesn't make it true. Your father wouldn't want you to blame yourself. He'd want you to keep fighting. Keep standing up for what's right. I don't know what's right anymore, Yuki. I thought I did. But everything I touch turns to ash. We talked for a few more minutes before I couldn't bear it anymore and made an excuse to hang up. Then I sat in the dark apartment, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of everything crushing down. A knock on the door. Takashi's voice. Rachel, please let me in. Please. I need to know you're okay. Go away. I'm not leaving until you open this door. Then you'll be waiting a long time. Silence. Then the sound of him sitting down outside the door. Staying. Just being present even though I'd pushed him away. And somehow that made everything hurt worse. Because I wanted to open that door. Wanted to let him hold me. Wanted to believe that together we could survive this. But my father was dead. And no amount of wanting could change that fact. I opened the door at dawn. Takashi was still there, slumped against the wall, exhausted but awake. His eyes found mine immediately, searching for signs of how broken I was. I'm sorry, he whispered. For shutting you out. You have nothing to apologize for. He stood slowly, his body stiff from sitting all night. Can I come in? I nodded, stepping aside. We sat on the couch in silence for a long time. Then he spoke, his voice careful, gentle. I've made arrangements for your father's funeral. Military honors, full service, everything he deserves. And I've ended this. The war with Sato. It's over. I looked at him sharply. What do you mean over? I accepted his terms. All of them. The territory, the profit split, everything he wanted. And in exchange, he stops targeting you, stops targeting anyone associated with me. It's done. But you said that would make you look weak. That every other group would try the same thing. Let them try. I don't care anymore. Your father died because of my world, because I dragged you into something you should never have been part of. I won't let anyone else pay that price. Especially not you. The sacrifice in his words hit me hard. He'd given up power, territory, respect, everything that mattered in his world, for me.
To protect me.
To stop the cycle of violence that had already taken too much. Takashi, you can't just surrender everything you've built. Watch me.
I'm tired, Rachel.
Tired of being this person. Tired of the violence and the fear and the constant calculation. When I look at you, I see what I could be if I was brave enough to walk away. Maybe it's time I find that courage. What are you saying? I'm saying I want out. Not just from this war, but from this life. I have money, legitimate investments, businesses that operate outside the family structure. I can disappear, start over, be someone different. They'll never let you just walk away. Probably not. But I'm going to try anyway. Because the alternative is becoming more of a monster than I already am. And I can't do that. Not anymore. Not after seeing what it costs. I stared at this man who'd been willing to wage war days ago, now talking about walking away from everything. The transformation should have seemed impossible. But I'd seen the cracks forming. Seen the exhaustion wearing him down. Seen the humanity he'd been trying to bury resurface despite his best efforts. Where would you go? I don't know yet. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without the name, without the reputation, without the weight of 4 generations of family expectations. That sounds lonely. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw everything he wasn't saying written in his eyes. It would be, unless someone came with me. My breath caught. Takashi. I know I have no right to ask. I know you should run as far from me as possible. I know your father just died because of my world, and asking you to stay in any capacity is selfish and wrong.
But I'm asking anyway.
Come with me, Rachel. Help me figure out how to be better. Help me learn to live without the violence. You want me to just leave everything behind? My life, my home, everything I know. I want you to have a chance at something better than what either of us has now. I want to give you the peace and safety I should have provided from the beginning. And selfishly, I want the chance to see if what's between us can survive outside the chaos. It was insane. Everything about this was insane. Running away with a former crime boss to start a new life somewhere unknown.
Trusting that he could really change.
Believing that we had something worth building on. But what was waiting for me here? An empty apartment filled with memories of my father. A city where people knew I'd been connected to the Yamamoto family. A life defined by grief and what-ifs. I need time to think, I said finally. My father's funeral is in 3 days. After that, I'll give you an answer. He nodded, accepting this. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. And Rachel, I meant what I said. This war is over. You're safe now. Whether you stay with me or not, you'll have financial security. Your father's medical debts are cleared. You'll never have to worry about money again. That's not contingent on your answer. Thank you. He left me alone then. And I spent the next 3 days in a fog of grief and impossible decisions. The funeral was beautiful and heartbreaking. Full military honors for Captain James Morrison. The flag presentation, the gun salute, the rows of uniformed soldiers paying respect to a man who'd served with distinction. Takashi attended from a distance, respectful enough not to intrude, but present enough to show support. Yuki came, looking healthier than I'd seen her in months. The treatments were working. She held my hand through the service, crying with me, being the friend she'd always been. What are you going to do now? She asked afterward. I don't know. I have an offer. A chance to start over somewhere new. But it means leaving everything behind. With him. She glanced toward where Takashi stood, keeping his distance. Maybe. Do you love him? The question hung in the air. Did I love him? This complicated, damaged, dangerous man who'd brought both security and catastrophe into my life? I think I might, I admitted. Is that crazy?
Love usually is.
But Rachel, your father taught you to stand up for what's right, to protect people, to never back down. Is running away with someone who's caused so much pain really what he would have wanted? He also taught me that people can change, that redemption is possible if someone truly wants it. And I think Takashi does. Then trust your instincts. You've never been wrong about people before. After the funeral, after everyone left, I went to the cemetery alone, stood in front of the fresh grave, and talked to my father the way I had when he was alive. I don't know what to do, Dad. Part of me wants to take Yuki's first reaction and run as far away as possible. Part of me thinks I should stay and try to build something new here. And part of me wants to see if Takashi can really become the man he's trying to be. What would you do? The wind rustled through the trees. No answers came. Just the quiet peace of knowing that my father's suffering was finally over. That wherever he wasn't in pain anymore. I think you tell me to follow my heart. To be brave. To choose the path that lets me help people and stand for something good. Even if that path is complicated and uncertain. I stayed until sunset, then made my decision. I found Takashi in his office 2 days later. He looked different. Lighter somehow. Like the decision to walk away had already started freeing him from the weight he'd carried. I have my answer, I said. He stood immediately, hope and fear warring in his expression. And I'll come with you. On 3 conditions. Name them. First, we do this right. No running away in the middle of the night. You properly transfer your businesses to people you trust. You make sure everyone who's been loyal to you is taken care of. No loose ends that could come back to hurt innocent people. Agreed. What else? Second, wherever we go, we find a way to help people. I didn't survive all this just to hide from the world. We use your resources, your money, everything you have to make a real difference. Legitimately. I'd like that. And the third condition? You promise me that you're really done. That you won't go back to that life no matter what happens. That you're committed to becoming someone different. Because I can't watch you destroy yourself. I can't love someone who's determined to be a monster. He crossed the distance between us in 3 steps, cupped my face in his hands, and looked at me with an intensity that took my breath away. You love me? I shouldn't. But I do. I love you too. I've been falling for you since the moment you broke my nose and spoke to me in perfect Japanese. You're the bravest, most principled person I've ever met. And I swear to you, on everything I have, that I'm done with that life. I want to be worthy of you. I want to be the man you see when you look at me. Not the reputation, not the monster, but the person I could actually be. Then he kissed me, gentle and desperate and full of promise. When we broke apart, I was crying. But for the first time in days, they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of hope. So, where are we going? I asked. I was thinking somewhere quiet. Maybe the Pacific Northwest. Small town, mountains, space to breathe. I've already started transferring legitimate assets. The real estate holdings, the shipping companies that operate legally, investment portfolios. It'll take a few months to fully disentangle everything, but we can start planning. What about the Yamamoto family businesses? My cousin Akira is taking over. He's been groomed for leadership, and he understands the delicate balance required. I'm stepping back publicly, citing health reasons. Some will suspect the truth, but as long as I actually disappear and don't interfere, most will accept it. And Sato. We've reached an understanding. As long as I honor my withdrawal, he has no reason to pursue us. It's over, Rachel. Really over. Over the next 2 months, I watched Takashi systematically dismantle his criminal empire while building something better. He set up trusts for his employees, ensured protection for people who'd been loyal, paid off debts and obligations. He became, in those final months, more of a leader than he'd ever been as a crime boss. Yuki's health continued improving. The treatments were working miracles. She'd found new purpose too, using her experience to counsel other cancer patients, giving them hope when they had none. You saved my life, she told me during one of our last visits before I left. Not just with the medical care, but with everything. You showed me what friendship means, what standing up for people looks like. You saved mine too. You were there when I needed help. You taught me that compassion matters even in the hardest circumstances. We hugged for a long time, both knowing we'd stay in touch but also accepting that our daily friendship was changing. She had her path. I had mine. The day before we left, Takashi took me to meet his grandmother, a tiny, fierce woman in her 90s who looked at me with sharp, assessing eyes. She spoke in Japanese. So you're the girl who broke my grandson's nose, and then his heart. Yes, ma'am. I responded in the same language. Though I'd argue, he gave me his heart willingly. She smiled, the first warmth I'd seen from her. Good answer. He needs someone who won't let him hide behind walls. Someone brave enough to see all of him and choose him anyway. Can you be that person? I'm going to try. That's all anyone can do. She took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Take care of him, and let him take care of you. You've both earned some peace. We left the city on a gray Tuesday morning. No fanfare, no goodbyes beyond the important ones. Just two people with a car full of belongings and a future to build. Takashi drove, his hand occasionally finding mine on the seat between us. Neither of us spoke much. We were both thinking about what we were leaving behind and what we were moving toward. Any regrets? He asked as the city disappeared in the rearview mirror.
Some.
I wish my father could have seen this, known that I found something worth fighting for. I think he knows, and I think he'd be proud of you, of who you became through all of this. What about you? Regrets? Only that I didn't become this person sooner, that I wasted so many years being what I thought I had to be instead of who I wanted to be. But I'm grateful for second chances, for you giving me one when I didn't deserve it. Everyone deserves a second chance if they're willing to do the work. We drove until sunset, then stopped at a small motel in the middle of nowhere. Lay in bed that night talking about the future, the community center we'd start, the programs for at-risk youth, the scholarships and support services, all the ways we could use his resources to actually help people. It won't erase what I've done, he said quietly, but maybe it'll balance the scales a little. Maybe that's all any of us can hope for, to leave the world better than we found it, even if we made mistakes along the way. He pulled me closer, his arms secure around me. Safe. Peaceful.
Home.
2 years later, I stood in front of a building that hadn't existed when we'd arrived in this small mountain town. The Morrison Yamamoto Community Center, named for my father and the man who'd helped build it. Inside, programs ran constantly. After-school tutoring for kids who struggled. Job training for adults transitioning careers. Support groups for families dealing with illness. Self-defense classes taught by instructors Takashi personally vetted. Everything we'd dreamed about made real. Yuki visited last month, healthy and vibrant, 5 years cancer-free. She'd brought her new girlfriend, a nurse she'd met during treatment. They'd stayed a week, hiking the trails around our property, laughing over dinners, planning their own wedding. Look at you, she'd said, watching me work with a group of teenage girls learning basic self-defense. You found your calling. We both did. You with your support groups, me with this. Turns out surviving hard things prepares you to help others survive too. Takashi came up beside me now, wrapping an arm around my waist. He looked different than the man I'd met that night in the restaurant. Lighter. The hardness had faded from his eyes, replaced by something gentler. He smiled more, laughed more, lived more. The new computers arrived, he said, for the job training center. And we got approval for the expansion. 12 more counseling rooms. That's amazing. It is. Rachel, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in his tone made me turn to face him fully. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's actually right for the first time in my life, which is why I wanted to ask you something. He dropped to one knee right there in the community center lobby, pulling out a small box. Rachel Morrison, you broke my nose and changed my life. You saw something in me worth saving when I'd given up on myself. You stood beside me through the worst of my world and helped me build something better. You're my best friend, my conscience, my home. Will you marry me? The teenagers in the self-defense class had stopped to watch. Staff members peeked out from offices. Everyone waited. Yes, I said, tears streaming down my face. Yes, of course yes. The cheering that erupted shook the building. He slipped the ring on my finger, stood, and kissed me while everyone applauded. That night, we sat on our porch watching the sunset over the mountains. The peace here was real. The life we'd built was real. The love between us had survived everything and grown stronger. Do you ever miss it?
I asked.
The power, the respect, the fear? Not even a little. I have something better now.
Purpose. Peace.
You. No regrets. Only one. That I can't go back and tell my younger self that there's another way. That you don't have to be what your family expects. That change is possible if you're brave enough to choose it. Maybe that's why we do this work. To tell other people those things. To give them chances we didn't have. Maybe. He squeezed my hand. Thank you, Rachel.
For seeing me. For choosing me.
For making me believe I could be better. Thank you. For proving me right. We sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out one by one. Tomorrow we'd wake up and continue the work. Help more people. Build more programs. Make more difference. But tonight, we just existed in the peace we'd fought so hard to find. My father would have been proud. Not just of what I'd built, but of who I'd become. Someone who stood up for others. Someone who believed in second chances. Someone who understood that courage meant fighting for what's right, even when the path was complicated. Especially then. As I looked at Takashi, at this man who'd walked away from everything to become someone better, I felt gratitude for the journey. The pain had been real. The losses had been devastating. But they'd led us here. To this moment.
To this life.
And that made everything worth it. Hey, thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that people can change, that second chances matter, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose love over fear. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about finding hope in impossible situations. Drop a comment telling me what you thought, or share your own story of second chances. I read every single one. Remember, it's never too late to choose a different path. It's never too late to become who you were meant to be. And it's never too late to stand up for what's right, even when everything tells you to stay down. Until next time, stay brave, stay kind, and never stop believing that better days are possible. Because they are. I'm living proof.